It was the sound of laughter that first drew the park ranger's attention. Laughter that didn't belong there anymore. The field was empty now, overgrown, silent. But as Ranger Michael Dunn walked past the old wooden picnic tables, he heard it. Children's voices, faint and echoing through the trees. He froze, the wind carrying what sounded like a boy calling, "Wait for me!" But when he turned, there was only the wind moving through the tall pines and the rustle of dry leaves underfoot. It had been 12 years since that boy vanished from this exact spot. May 18th, 2013. The morning air was brisk and bright as the yellow school bus rumbled toward Pine Ridge. Teacher Laura Spencer sat near the front, ticking names off her clipboard. "Ethan Cole?" she called. "Here," came a soft voice from the middle seats. She smiled faintly. Ethan sat alone by the window, clutching his lunchbox and compass. Beside him, his backpack was open. Inside, a sketchbook filled with drawings of trees, maps, and something else. A strange triangular shape he'd been doodling for weeks. His best friend, Mason Turner, sat across the aisle. "You ready to explore the woods, Star Boy?" Ethan grinned. "Maybe I'll find something cool, like an old cabin." By noon, the children were scattered across the forest trail, following Ranger Dunn as he pointed out bird nests and animal tracks. But Ethan, ever curious, lingered near the back. He was staring at his compass, confused. The needle trembled violently, twitching and spinning like it couldn't decide where north was. He called to Mason, "Hey, look at this. My compass is acting weird." But Mason didn't hear him. The group moved on, laughter fading into the trees. By the time Laura Spencer did her next head count, Ethan was gone. At first, everyone thought he'd wandered off the trail. Kids do that. Maybe he stopped to pick up a rock or sketch a bird. But as the sun dropped behind the ridge and the temperature began to fall, worry set in. "Ethan! Ethan Cole!" Voices called through the woods. Ranger Dunn radioed for backup. Teachers fanned out in pairs. Parents were notified. By 6 p.m., the search was official. Helicopters hovered above the trees, dogs barked through the night, and searchlights swept across the dark forest floor. But there was no sign of him, no footprints, no torn clothing, no sign of struggle. Just that single compass, found lying in the mud near a dried-up stream. Its needles still spun wildly when they picked it up. For days, Pine Ridge was overrun by state police, reporters, and desperate volunteers. The story hit national news. Boy vanishes on field trip, and Maple Hollow became a town gripped by fear and guilt. Detective Sarah Klein led the case. She interviewed everyone, the teachers, the ranger, the classmates, but their stories all matched. Ethan was there one moment, gone the next. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said he'd been abducted. Others whispered about a hidden well or sinkhole. And then there were those who believed something stranger had happened, something beyond explanation. In the weeks that followed, investigators found strange details that made no sense. A second set of footprints leading away from the trail, smaller, almost like a child's, but with an unusual stride pattern. A torn scrap of notebook paper with Ethan's handwriting. "If I don't come back, look for the triangles." Detective Klein held onto that note for years, never understanding what it meant. Time moved on, as it always does. The Cole family eventually moved away, unable to live with the constant reminders. The empty bedroom, the posters, the questions. His mother, Janet Cole, kept the porch light on every night for 3 years before finally turning it off. The case went cold. Pine Ridge closed its trails to schools after that, though hikers still came and went. Ranger Dunn retired in 2017, haunted by the sound of that boy's voice echoing through his memory. Every so often, a new clue would resurface. A reported sighting, a footprint, a voice on a CB radio. But each one faded into nothing, until 12 years later. It was the first day of the new school year at Maple Hollow Elementary, August 29, 2025. A crisp morning, the kind where leaves had just started to blush at the edges and the school smelled faintly of floor polish and pencil shavings. Teacher Emily Harris was in her classroom early, organizing folders for her new 5th graders. She opened the district's new digital attendance list, a standard procedure. 25 students. She skimmed the names, half-focused, until one caught her eye, a name that sent a chill crawling up her neck. Ethan Cole. She blinked, assuming it was a mistake, a duplicate, but the list showed an assigned student ID number, a recent registration. The system even had a parent contact name, Janet Cole. Emily leaned back, frowning. That can't be right. She clicked the ID. The system lagged, then flickered as if the screen itself glitched. When it finally loaded, a small profile photo appeared. It was a boy thin, with soft brown hair and a familiar dimple on his left cheek. The timestamp under the photo read, updated, August 28, 2025, 11:59 p.m. Her heart pounded. That was impossible. That afternoon, Emily called the district office. Hi, this is Mrs. Harris from Maple Hollow Elementary. I think there's been a mistake with my student roster. There's a name. The receptionist interrupted. Oh, you mean Ethan Cole? Yeah, we got that flagged already. Looks like a data error from the central system. They're sorting it out. Emily hesitated. It's just that name. I know. Weird coincidence, right? The voice on the other end said, half laughing. Anyway, don't worry. It'll clear up by tomorrow. But that night she couldn't sleep. Curiosity, or maybe dread, got the better of her. She searched for the name online. Within seconds, the old news articles appeared. Boy 10 vanishes on school trip. No trace found. Pine Ridge mystery. Search for missing student enters day 7. Detective Sarah Klein calls case. The one that never let go. Emily stared at Ethan's photo. The same face she'd seen in her class register, only younger. The next morning, the district database had reset. The name was gone. But that evening, as Emily was locking up her classroom, the phone on her desk rang. It wasn't supposed to. After hours, the line automatically rerouted to the front office. She hesitated, then picked up. Maple Hollow Elementary. This is Mrs. Harris. There was silence. And then, faintly, a young boy's voice. Are we going back to Pine Ridge? Click. The line went dead. Her hands shook as she looked at the caller ID. It showed a number unknown. But under the timestamp was a chilling detail. Call duration, 12 seconds. Caller, Ethan Cole. The next morning, Detective Sarah Klein, retired now, gray streaking her hair, was drinking coffee on her porch when her old police-issued cell phone, long and used, vibrated. A text message appeared from an unknown number. It contained a single image, a classroom roster screenshot. Ethan Cole's name highlighted in yellow. And beneath it, 3 words that made her blood run cold. He's back, Sarah. She dropped the phone, the screen still glowing in the early dawn light. For the first time in 12 years, the boy in the woods had returned, at least in name. But as the investigation would soon uncover, the truth about Ethan Cole's disappearance was something far darker and stranger than anyone had imagined. Her cell phone buzzed again at 6:12 a.m. Another text. This one contained only coordinates, a GPS location. When Sarah entered them into her map app, her breath caught. The pin dropped exactly where Ethan Cole had vanished. No name, no sender. Just a single word beneath the coordinates. Come alone. She hesitated, staring out the window as dawn light crept over the quiet street. The years had not been kind to her. Arthritis in her knees, sleepless nights, and a heart weighed down by regrets. But some things you don't walk away from. She grabbed her coat and gun, out of habit more than necessity, and drove toward Pine Ridge. By the time she reached the trailhead, the forest was waking up, mist curling between the trees, the ground wet from a night's rain. Her boots sank into the mud as she stepped over the rotted sign. Pine Ridge Nature Reserve, closed to public. Every sound seemed louder here. The caw of distant crows, the crunch of leaves underfoot. She followed the coordinates until she reached a clearing, the same clearing from 12 years ago. There, beneath an old oak tree, lay something half buried in the soil. A metal lunchbox. Rusted, dented, but still sealed. Sarah crouched down, heart hammering. She wiped away the dirt, pried it open with a pocket knife, and froze. Inside was a stack of old photographs, laminated school pictures. Ethan Cole's 5th grade class. On the back of each photo, written in neat pencil, "We're still here." And at the bottom of the box, his compass. The same one she'd logged as evidence in 2013. By noon, Sarah was standing in the Maple Hollow Police Department for the first time in years. The younger officers greeted her like a ghost. Chief Warren Blake, a man she'd once trained, looked up from his desk. "Sarah, I thought you swore you'd never come back." "I didn't," she said, placing the rusted lunchbox on his desk. "But he did." Warren opened it, his brow furrowing. "Where did you find this?" "Pine Ridge. Same coordinates where Ethan vanished. Someone wanted me to find it." He flipped through the photographs. "This is impossible. These are police evidence copies. Originals were destroyed in the 2018 fire." Sarah looked him in the eye. "Then someone has access to things they shouldn't." Teacher Emily Harris couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time she turned a corner, she swore she saw movement. A fleeting shadow, a figure in the hallway after hours. She told herself it was nerves. The name on the register had to be a glitch. But then came the second incident. During homeroom that day, as she passed out attendance sheets to the students, she noticed one of the kids, Liam, quiet and sharp-eyed, staring at something on his tablet. "Liam, what are you looking at?" He turned the screen toward her. It was a Google Classroom profile list. And right there, among her current students, was a new icon, a photo of a boy with brown hair and a faint dimple. The name beneath it, Ethan Cole. Her knees went weak. "Where did you get this?" "It just showed up," Liam said. "Last night." Says he joined the class. Emily checked the timestamp. 12:03 a.m. Exactly 12 hours after she'd received the mysterious phone call. By evening, Emily was sitting across from Sarah Klein at the police station. "I know how this sounds," Emily said, voice trembling, "but I swear it was him. His name, his picture, it's all back in the system. It's like someone's re-enrolling him." Sarah studied her closely. "You ever meet Ethan Cole before?" "No. He went missing before I moved here. But everyone in town knows the story." Sarah leaned forward. "Did the system show any parent contact details?" Emily nodded. "Janet Cole. His mother." Sarah sat back, her breath catching. "That's not possible." "Why not?" "Because Janet Cole died 5 years ago." That night, Sarah drove out to the old Cole residence, a weathered, white farmhouse on the edge of town. The windows were boarded up, weeds swallowing the porch. But as she approached the mailbox, she froze. A fresh envelope sat inside. No postage, just her name scrawled across it. Detective S. Klein. Inside was a single piece of paper, typed, "Clean. He's trying to come home." And below the message, coordinates again. Different ones this time. They pointed not to Pine Ridge, but to Maple Hollow Elementary School. It was past midnight when Emily's phone buzzed. Security alert. Motion detected. Classroom 5B. Her classroom. Panicked, she called Sarah, who was already on her way to the coordinates. They arrived minutes apart, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The hallway was empty, silent except for the low hum of vending machines. Emily swallowed hard. It's the same room where his name appeared. They reached her classroom door. Sarah tried the handle, unlocked. When they stepped inside, Emily gasped. The desks had been rearranged into a circle. In the center, written in chalk across the floor, were words that made their blood run cold. "Where is my class?" And sitting on Emily's desk, illuminated by the moonlight, was the same rusted lunchbox Sarah had found that morning. Only now it was open, and inside, a fresh photograph. It was Ethan Cole, older, maybe 16, smiling, alive. The next day, Sarah pulled every file she could find on the old case. Most had been lost in the evidence fire, but a few digital copies survived. One of them was the original witness statement from Mason Turner, Ethan's childhood friend. the last to see him. He described hearing a low humming sound near the stream before Ethan vanished, something that made the compass spin. Sarah searched through the ranger's logs from that day, and something caught her attention. At 3:11 p.m., the same minute Ethan was last seen, the park's power sensors recorded a magnetic surge, strong enough to disrupt compasses and radios. Whatever happened in those woods wasn't random. Mason Turner was 22 now, working at a gas station just off Highway 7. He tried to move on, but when Sarah found him, he went pale. "I always knew this day would come," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn from years of handling. It was a drawing, Ethan's drawing, the same triangle shape from his notebook, but now it had markings, concentric circles, and symbols like coordinates. "He gave me this before he disappeared," Mason said. "Told me if he ever got lost, this would help me find him." Sarah unfolded the note completely. At the bottom was a small handwritten phrase, "Look where the triangles meet." Sarah and Emily spent that night mapping Pine Ridge from satellite images, trying to make sense of the clue. Then Emily gasped, "Sarah, look at this." Zoomed out, the park's 3 hiking trails formed a triangular pattern, and right where they intersected, near the old stream, sat the clearing where Ethan vanished. "That's where he wants us to go," Sarah said. "But why send the messages now?" Emily whispered. Sarah stared at the compass lying on the desk, its needle spinning on its own. "Because," she said quietly, "he's back, and he's trying to show us something." That night, a storm rolled over Maple Hollow. Lightning flashed through the clouds as Sarah and Emily hiked back into Pine Ridge, following the compass as it pulsed wildly in Sarah's hand. When they reached the clearing, everything was silent, except for a faint, rhythmic humming, rising from beneath the ground. Sarah knelt down and brushed away the dirt, revealing a square metal hatch embedded in the soil. It looked decades old, bolted shut. Emily whispered, "What is that?" Sarah's flashlight trembled. "Something we were never meant to find." As thunder cracked overhead, the hatch shifted, and from within the darkness came the unmistakable sound of a young boy's voice. "Are we going back to Pine Ridge?" Sarah froze, flashlight shaking in her hand. "Ethan?" she whispered into the darkness. No answer, just the sound of the storm and the rhythmic hum beneath their feet, a low-frequency vibration that made their bones ache. Emily stepped closer. "Sarah, did you hear that?" He said. "I heard." Sarah swallowed. "But that's impossible." She shone her light directly onto the hatch. Faded military stenciling ran across the metal. "Property of U.S. Army Signal Corps, 1951. "What the hell is this doing here?" Emily murmured. Sarah brushed away the mud until her fingers found a small keypad embedded in the side. The numbers glowed faintly active. Someone had been using this recently. Sarah hesitated only a moment before typing the only number sequence that had haunted her for years. Ethan's student ID. 031113. A mechanical click echoed through the clearing. The hatch hissed open. A rush of cold, metallic air swept out, smelling of rust and earth. A narrow ladder descended into the darkness. Sarah aimed her flashlight downward. Concrete walls, steel pipes, and the faint reflection of water below. Emily looked at her. "You're not seriously going down there, are you?" "I didn't come this far to stop now," Sarah said and started climbing. The ladder ended in a long, narrow tunnel. The air was cold, heavy with moisture. Old fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead, humming in a sickly rhythm. They followed the sound, the same magnetic hum that had haunted the investigation, until they reached a small, reinforced chamber. And that's when they saw it. At the center of the room stood a glass pod, about the size of a coffin. Frost clung to its edges. Inside was a boy, pale, motionless, his features frozen in time. Emily's voice cracked. "Sarah, it's him." It was Ethan Cole, just as he'd looked the day he vanished. Sarah's flashlight trembled as she stepped closer. "No, this isn't possible." On a nearby control panel, Green lights blinked softly beside a label. Project E.C. 57. Status. Active. Emily scanned the room. What is this place? Some kind of lab? Old folders lay scattered across the floor. Sarah picked one up, brushing off dust. It was stamped Confidential, Pine Ridge Experiments, 1957. She flipped through the pages. Black and white photos of children, sitting in classrooms, staring blankly at walls. Headings read, Temporal Echo Studies, Neural Memory Preservation. Her eyes widened. Oh my God! Emily's voice trembled. What does it mean? It means Ethan didn't disappear by accident, Sarah said slowly. He was taken into something that's been here for decades. Suddenly, one of the control monitors flickered to life, displaying an old-school interface with cascading green text. User detected. Detective S. Klein. Accessing file, memory logs. A distorted audio file began to play. A child's voice. If they find me, tell my mom I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't mean to follow the light. Sarah's heart stopped. That's him. That's Ethan. Another voice, male, older, calm, clinical. Subject 031113 has demonstrated unique resonance with the magnetic field. Memory pattern stable. Proceeding to temporal lock sequence. Emily covered her mouth. Temporal lock? Sarah, are they saying? Sarah finished the thought for her. He wasn't just hidden. He was frozen, stuck in time. The humming grew louder, vibrating the walls. The lights flickered violently. On the console, new text appeared. Reactivation sequence. Initiated. The pod's frost began to melt. Steam hissed through the chamber as the boy's fingers twitched. Sarah, what's happening? Emily cried. Sarah grabbed her arm. We have to shut it down. She frantically scanned the control board, searching for a kill switch. But as she reached for the lever, the monitor screen changed, showing live security footage of Maple Hollow Elementary. Every classroom was empty, except one. Room 5B. And sitting in the center desk, smiling faintly at the camera, was Ethan Cole, older now. Alive. Emily's knees buckled. How is that possible? He's here. And there. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Because one of them isn't real. The pod's glass cracked. Alarms blared. From the ceiling, panels opened, releasing bursts of light that pulsed like strobes. The hum turned deafening. A sound that wasn't just heard, but felt. Suddenly, the boy in the pod opened his eyes. And they weren't normal, they shimmered like static. He looked directly at Sarah. You weren't supposed to come back. Then, the pod exploded in a flash of blinding white light. When Sarah opened her eyes, she was lying on the forest floor. The rain had stopped. The hatch was gone, as if it had never existed. Beside her, Emily stirred, disoriented. Sarah? What happened? Sarah looked around. The clearing was empty, silent. No sign of the tunnel. No footprints. No evidence. Except for one thing. Half buried in the dirt lay Ethan's compass. Still spinning. Even though there was no magnetic source. Maple Hollow returned to its quiet routines, pretending the storm had never happened. Emily returned to teaching, trying to convince herself it had all been a nightmare. But one morning, as she took attendance, her computer froze. A new student name appeared at the bottom of the list. Ethan Cole. Same photograph. Same ID number. She slammed the laptop shut. At that same moment, Sarah sat alone in her house, reading through the few surviving pages from the Pine Ridge file. Her eyes stopped on one paragraph she hadn't noticed before. Project E.57 is based on the theory that trauma can anchor a consciousness to magnetic interference points, creating time resonance loops. She whispered, temporal lock, trauma loop. Then, from the hallway, her television flickered on by itself. A news broadcast. Local coverage of Maple Hollow Elementary's annual field trip to Pine Ridge Nature Reserve. The camera panned across the excited students' boarding buses. And there, in the second row, was a boy with brown hair and a faint dimple, staring directly into the lens. Sarah dropped the file. No, it can't be. The camera zoomed slightly, and for the briefest second, his lips moved. We're still here. Then the screen went black. 3 days later, the Pine Ridge Reserve was closed again, officially for land instability. But those who wandered too close at night claimed to hear faint voices under the soil, children's laughter, a compass spinning in the dirt, and sometimes, if the wind is still enough, a boy whispering softly from the trees. Are we going back to Pine Ridge?